Good morning again. Welcome. My name's Jeff White, and I serve on your fellowship board of directors. And I want to thank everybody for being here today, and I would like to extend a special welcome to any visitors that we have. And if you'd like more information about the fellowship, please visit the welcome table out in the fireside room and talk to them, or you can sign up on our virtual guest book at uufames.org/guestbook. Now, whether you're joining us from home or here in Fellowship Hall, we invite you to stay after the service for coffee fellowship, where you can introduce yourself and join in conversation with kindred spirits. I don't believe there's any announcements today. Yay. So on behalf of this caring and nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you to this sacred space. Here we invite you to an experience of transformation, hope, renewal, connections, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thank you for joining us today.
Our opening words this morning are from Reverend Dr. David Breeden. Welcome to this place where equity and justice transcend mere dreams, where they are the air we breathe.
Enter this sanctuary, all who yearn for respite from a world rife with scarcity and inequity, rife with the relentless shackles of privilege and bias.
Come, embrace this place. Be embraced by this space, this refuge.
Where scarcity and disparity dissolve into we together.
Crafting a place where the breath of life is equity and justice, cherished, manifested, and sustained. And our chalice lighting this morning is from Reverend Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals. We rise now in body or spirit for our opening song, number 125, From the Crush of Wealth and Power.
Something broken in us all, makes us feel invite those young and young at heart to come forward for our story this morning. Odd Velvet by Mary E. Whitcomb. On the first day of school, Velvet's classmates brought their teacher cinnamon tea, lace handkerchiefs, and heart-shaped boxes of potpourri. Velvet handed her teacher an egg carton filled with 7 rocks, her favorite red shoelaces, and half a sparrow's egg. Velvet was awed. At lunchtime, Velvet not only carried a used brown paper bag, but inside of it were things like carrots and a butter sandwich, and she ate them. At recess, a few of the girls noticed that Velvet was not wearing a new dress, even though it was the beginning of the school year. Where did she come from, they wondered out loud. All of this strangeness did not stop after the first day of school. In fact, it got worse. Velvet brought in a milkweed pod for show and tell. Luckily, 3 of the other girls brought in a talking doll, a wedding doll, and a crying doll, and saved the day. Velvet's nose was freckled. She had a pack of only 8 crayons, and her sweater once belonged to her older sister. Nothing was right about Odd Velvet. Although everyone was polite to her, no one was silly enough to pick Velvet for partner or to walk home with her after school. No one wanted to be different the way Velvet was different. On the day of the school field trip, the children were laughing and calling each other by their nicknames. Someone called out, "What's your nickname, Velvet?" It got quiet as Velvet looked around. "I don't have one," she said, "but my father told me that on the day I was born, the sun was just rising over the mountains, and outside it looked as though the world had been covered with a blanket of smooth, soft lavender velvet." A few of the boys let out a giggle, but mostly the bus fell quiet. For a moment, everyone was thinking of how beautiful that morning must have been, the day Velvet was born. The following week, a school drawing contest was announced. There was no question who the winner would be. Sarah Garvey had the best markers, the best paint set, and more colored pencils than anyone else in the class. When the day arrived to announce the winner, the children let Sarah sit right up front. No one was more surprised than she when the teacher called out Velvet's name. Velvet had drawn an apple. "It's just a piece of fruit," Sarah protested. Everyone stared at the picture. "It looks so real, I would like to eat it," someone said. "It seems like you could just pick it up," another child added. Sure enough, with just her 8 crayons, Velvet had drawn the most beautiful apple the children had ever seen. Little by little, the things that Velvet said and the things that Velvet did began to make sense. The teacher had Velvet speak for 2 whole days about her rock collection. She even had ashes from a real volcano. Still, on the day she handed out invitations to her birthday party, the whispering began. "I bet her house is old and dark," Sarah said. The thought of going to Velvet's house made everyone feel a little uneasy. Velvet lived in a tiny house at the end of a long road. There was no jungle gym or tetherball, just a tall swing hanging from a big old tree. At the door, Velvet's mom and dad politely asked the children in. There were no magicians or wizards, not even a clown. But they got to turn Velvet's room into a castle. The royal subjects painted their faces and put glitter in their hair. They jumped high off the bed into a blue blanket moat. Velvet's sister made each of them golden crowns with colored jewels. They took turns wearing Velvet's royal cloak, which used to be a bed cover. They played cards and shot marbles. Velvet even showed them how to draw beautiful apples. On the last day of school, Velvet's classmates brought their teacher handfuls of flowers, cards they had made, and an impressive collection of nice-looking rocks. Velvet was different, but maybe she wasn't so odd after all. And so ends our story. If we could sing our children to their classes this morning.
I'm a little like Odd Velvet. I love milkweeds. Will you join me now in a time of prayer and meditation? And our prayer this morning is from Reverend Rebecca Savage. We gather today with sacred intention to declare that justice is our prayer. We affirm in covenant with the beloved community that it is possible. Not here, not quite yet. The seeds have been planted time and time again. And we remember all those who went before us that made beloved community in our time a dream that could be realized. Justice is our prayer. May our time together continue to water the budding trees of our diverse interdependence. May our time together give air and nourishment to the parts of our collective spirits that need to grow and thrive in order to embrace equity as a way of being. Justice is our prayer. We affirm in covenant with the beloved community that it is possible. And let us take a moment of silence now to consider in our own lives how we can bring justice to the world. May it be so, and amen.
Our reading this morning is from Margaret Atwood, The Weather. We used to watch the birds. Now we watch the weather. white clouds downy as pillows, gray ones like giant thumbs, dark ones fat with doom. Once we didn't bother. We had umbrellas and rooms. But while we were looking elsewhere at wars and other diversions, the weather crept up behind us like a snake or thug or panther, and then cut loose. Why were we so careless? We ask ourselves as the weather billows over the horizon, green and yellow, thickening itself with sand and body parts and broken chairs and shouts. In its wake, we shrivel or drown. How can we cram it back into the sack or bottle where it used to be so small? Who let it out? If the weather's listening at all, it's not to us. Is it our fault? Did we cause this wreckage by breathing? All we wanted was a happy life and for things to go on as they used to. The wind falls. There's a hush, a half-hour silence in heaven. Then here comes the weather, again, one huge, relentless blare, trampling everything down, singeing the air. It's blind and deaf and stupendous, and has no mind of its own. Or does it? What if it does? Suppose you were to pray to it. What would you say? Margaret Atwood, a philosopher for our times. We will now give and receive our morning offering. Please know that this morning, half of the non-pledge offering will be donated to the Buxton Initiative. This nonprofit organization offers spaces for the Black community to feel seen, heard, and be present together. Their programs include providing communities with books written by Black authors, promoting Black artists in Iowa, and a national interview series celebrating a wide variety of Black creators for their common and yet unique individual stories. The other half of the offering will support programs here in our fellowship that make this a community of inspiration and transformation. We'll pass the baskets here in Fellowship Hall. Alternatively, for those at home or here with cell phones, you can visit our website to make a contribution today. And if you are visiting with us today, please know that your presence is gift enough. And we're delighted to have women in the round for our offertory music today.
Thank you, women in the round. May the life I lead speak for me. Oh, yes. But sometimes you have to speak too. And good morning, Central Iowa and beyond.
Good morning.
My name is Reverend A.J. Glazin. I'm your interim minister. My pronouns are he and his. And I want to thank everyone joining us here today, both in the sanctuary and on Zoom. Wherever you are on your spiritual or ethical or questioning journey, you are welcome here. Today is February 11th, and this is Don't Cry Over Spilled Milk Day, a day to promote a positive attitude, even when things might not be going your way. It's a day for looking on the bright side of things and then carrying that feeling with you. From the National Day Calendar website, here are some tips on how to observe Don't Cry Over Spilled Milk Day. Number one, be prepared. Sometimes the things that happen do so because we didn't study, prepare, or organize our day. Sometimes the glass of milk is too close to the arm. That's what I have to be prepared for. Number two, expect the unexpected. No matter who we are and what we do, stuff happens. Number three, have a backup plan. These come in especially handy for big occasions. And number four is breathe. Breathe could be on every list, I think. Ask yourself, will this issue matter in a day? If the answer is no, then it's just a little spilled milk. How about a week? Still no? It's still just spilled milk. And if the concern doesn't change the course of your life, it's just spilled milk. So while I'm thinking of it, let me share a moment of gratitude for our coffee and culinary volunteers, our kitchen angels, and Norma, our janitor, for keeping everything around here clean and tidy from the milk and everything else that gets spilled around here. Because of their work, we need not shed a tear. This week brings us to Ash Wednesday, the beginning of the season of Lent in the Christian calendar. And Lent commemorates the 40 days and 40 nights that Jesus spent in the desert, fasting and praying, and facing temptation. Lent ends on Easter Sunday, and it's a time to reflect on what sacrifices we can make in our lives to deepen our commitment and our faith. Many people give up something of luxury for the period of Lent and donate the value of what they would have spent to charity. Now, Lent is not widely observed in the Unitarian Universalist community, but in my curiosity, I found a few passages for Lent in our hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition, and I will share one with you this morning. If you want to read along with me in your hymnal, it's number 549. Number 549, because I know I'm a very visual person. I like to read along. This is called the Hymn to Matter by the French geologist and Catholic priest, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Blessed be you, harsh matter, barren soil, stubborn rock, you who yield only to violence, you who force us to work if we would eat. Blessed be you, perilous matter, violent sea, untamable passion, you who, unless we fetter, will devour us. Blessed be you, mighty matter, irresistible march of evolution, reality ever newborn, you who by constantly shattering our mental categories force us to go ever further and further in our own pursuit of the truth. Blessed be you, universal matter, unmeasurable time, boundless ether, triple abyss of stars and atoms and generations. You who by overflowing and dissolving our narrow standards of measurement reveal to us the dimensions of God. Close quote. Wow. Blessed be you, mighty matter, harsh matter. Teilhard de Chardin gives me a clear image of the meaning of Lent in our contemporary world. Barren soil, violent sea, constantly shattering our categories to go further and further in our own pursuit of truth. To me, Lent is like a rock, a hard place, a shifting foundation of ancient mystery, revealing both the cosmic passage of time, which is beyond any human scale, and the eroded microscopic elements and minerals found in every grain of sand. Last week I spoke about aging, a process subtle and profound that each of us experiences, whether we know it or like it. Some things we have control over, some things are beyond us. And the image I suggested last Sunday for making the choice of what to do next was from Margaret Atwood's poem, Boat Song, which was an allusion to the Titanic. When confronting change, we could decide to join the orchestra, utilize our talents, entertain the community, or we could grab a few trinkets, run with horror, and try to escape calamity by jumping ship. I admit those were extreme examples. So this week I chose another poem by Margaret Atwood, The Weather, which allows for a gentler critique on facing the unknown. Changes in the weather are constant. This is a more subtle image than the great ship hitting an iceberg. And so are the subtlety of the stories that we tell. Weather is capable of carving mountains, one raindrop at a time. Sometimes our need and desire to pigeonhole each other, to pigeonhole our fellow human beings, is hidden in how we understand or misunderstand their stories. What are the attributes of this selective filtering? Here are a few, and this is by no means an exhaustive list of all the subconscious categories that we inherit from our ancestors and our experiences. So let's start out with age. Are you older, younger, middle-aged, childish, stuffy? Do you have generation gaps? Appearance, how a person looks, hair, skin color, clothing, grooming, body proportions, gender identity, movements, expressions, body language, dialect, how a person speaks, their vocabulary, their accent. Are they loud or are they soft? Regionality, being acquainted with a particular culture. Are you a northerner, a southerner, East Coast, West Coast, Central Iowan? Oh, I thought that would get you. Central Iowan. I kind of am familiar with that regionality now. Socioeconomic status. Rich, poor, middle class, working class, unemployed, retired. Familial status, single, married, divorced, widowed, adopted, with or without children, extended family, families we choose. Formal education, prestigious institutions, professions, fields, degrees and advanced degrees, tenure. And finally, emotional and relational intelligence, empathy, attentiveness, understanding, honesty, boundaries, helpfulness, friendliness. Now, I'm sure you have many more categories for how you judge people, how we judge people. And Teilhard de Chardin reminds us to constantly shatter our categories, to go further and further in our pursuit of truth. Chimamanda Adichie, a writer who grew up in Nigeria, was surprised when she moved to the States that all her university classmates expected she would know everything about Africa. Adichie recognized that being defined by a single story was very limiting and intimidating. She writes, quote, "I've always felt it was impossible to engage properly with a person or place without engaging all of the stories of that place and person. The consequence of a single story is this: it robs people of their dignity. It makes our recognition of equal humanity difficult. It emphasizes how different we are rather than how we are similar. I must say, she goes on, I must say that before I went to the US, I didn't consciously identify as African. But in the US, whenever Africa came up, people turned to me. Never mind that I knew nothing about places like Namibia. But I did come to embrace this new identity. And in many ways, I think of myself now as African. So after I had spent some years in the US as an African, I began to understand my roommate's response to me. If I had not grown up in Nigeria, and all I knew about Africa were from popular images, I too would think Africa was a place of beautiful landscapes, beautiful animals, and incomprehensible people fighting senseless wars, dying of poverty and AIDS, unable to speak for themselves, and waiting to be saved by a kindly white foreigner, close quote. Why is it that we often form our own stories based on other people's preconceptions? One component of the ministerial search process that is going on as we speak is the B4 workshop to break barriers and build beliefs that many of you attended in January. This workshop was aimed at helping congregations become aware of their own biases, prejudices, and preferences, which are often hidden. And at the workshop, we were given an exercise that I want to share with you this morning. If people were to judge you by one single story from your life, first think of a story that you are proud of, that says something about who you are. So just take a moment. Some story that you are proud of that says something of who you are to someone who has never met you. And now, think of another story, but one you're not so happy with, that you're not proud of. And if people knew, they would have a completely different perspective of you. Do you have your two stories? Good, but you don't have to tell anyone, unless you want to. Just doing this exercise is valuable. But I will tell you my stories. So one story I'm proud of is that I was a recreational specialist with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. I founded the Shuffleboard Club and worked with the Special Olympics, and I organized and coached volleyball club for 20 years. So that's the story I love. The story I'm not so fond of was that I once won a disco dancing contest. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love dancing and disco music, but now it's called EDM, electronic dance music. But remember, the assignment was how one single story could change your perception of a person. So after reflecting on this for a while, I realized that both of my stories contained common themes. They both have movement, timing, energy, practice, and skill. But the bottom line is that I would rather be known as a coach and an organizer instead of shake, 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 shake your booty, shake your booty. Come on now. Shake, 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 shake your booty, shake your booty. You are amazing. Your assignment this week, should you choose to accept it, is to consider the power of telling your many stories. Your many stories. And Mark and Jan had a service a couple of weeks ago where they came forth and really shared their stories. Share your stories not just in one single, well-rehearsed blurb, but with a variety of your adventures, with nuance beyond a simple category. And for extra credit, remember that any new minister that you eventually call here will share a variety of their stories with you. And it will take time before both of you feel safe enough, confident enough, and comfortable enough to understand and appreciate each other. I waited for a long time before I told you about my dancing career. There is no deadline for this assignment. It usually takes a lifetime. May it be so, and amen. Will you rise now in body or spirit for our closing song, number 22, Dear Weaver of Our Lives' Design. Our closing words are from Elena Westbrook. Go in hope, for the arc of the universe is long, and we can bend it toward justice. Go in courage, for together we have the strength to confront injustice in our daily lives and in the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love is both the reason and the means by which we transform our lives. Go now in peace.